Hi, everyone. Welcome. Still getting set up here, so bear with me for 1 second. Happy Sunday. Let's see here. We'll give everybody a chance to join me. Let's see here. We are... Okay. Welcome to Your Sew Along. Today we are going to be working on a project pack for a travel roll. This is one of my favorite projects, guys. It's a really fun travel roll up. You can use it as a travel bag for all your toiletries, or you can use it as an artist bag. Like if you want to be able to bring some for your kids, like a notebook and crayons in the car, or if you're an artist and you want to bring your sketchbook with all your different pencils, anything like that. I mean, if you're a chef, you can make it into a chef bag with your knives. There's a lot of different options that you can do for this roll up, which is great. And you'll be able to customize it. We'll talk about that when we get to that point of it. For those of you joining us for Sewing Summer Camp, welcome. Very excited to have you here. Follow along at your own pace. This will be posted later for Sewing Summer Camp, and also badges will be out by the end of the week. I know our little I call them badges because my kids are in Girl Scouts. Patches. They're patches for everybody else. We'll be out by the end of the week for Sewing Summer Camp. Okay. You guys got to bear with me today. It has been a day, and I'm just going to turn my phone off so that I don't get interrupted while we sew. All right. Usually, wasn't it like the first time we do this? It's always crazy. This time it's the last time. Okay, that's off. Let's get started. So we're going to talk about what you need. In your project kit, you should have your instructions, so you want to grab those out. When you flip to the first page of your instructions, you have this very useful, informative sheet. This sheet is going to be what tells you everything that you need. And I just realized I didn't put my other light on. So give me 1 second while you guys grab that. I'm going to turn my other light on. There we go. And hopefully you can see me a little bit better. Oof, there we go. Oh, that's better. Now you can see us a little bit better. Okay. So, on this first page, it's going to tell you all the pieces of your project. Now, most patterns, and I've said this before, have this kind of a sheet. They tell you what each piece is in the pattern. They'll tell you, they'll assign like a number or a letter to the pattern. It's very common with patterns. You're not going to always see it, especially nowadays where a lot of people make online patterns, but it is something common, especially if you're going to like the fabric store and picking up a pattern there. So in this project, we have a main piece, one outside, one inside, and those are going to be those big, long pieces. So here is my one main outside piece, and then look at this fun lining piece. You probably have waterproof canvas. I chose to go with this just because it's going to be a fun little kit for my kids to use, and I wanted something really fun. I didn't have waterproof canvas in the right color, so we improvise sometimes when we're sewing. B is your pocket pieces. Your pocket piece, and then C is your top cover piece. These are going to look identical, guys, and they're going to match your outside fabric. They're going to be the same size. Okay, so we've got those. And then D is our side pouch pieces. Those are these fun, funky shapes, 2 of those. And then you're going to have your zipper ends, which are these. You should have 4 of them. They're small. We try to cut these a little bit bigger than you need, so you should have some extra room to work with, and I'll talk about trimming them back later. All right, notions. What are notions? Notions are all those extra things you use when you are making a project. They can be elastic, they can be thread, needles, pins, all that stuff. So what's included in here is your zipper with a zipper pull on it, very important. You also have the strap that you use to kind of knot it up when you go to sew, and you have your thread, of course. Some other things that you might want to have in your toolkit ready is a pair of scissors, both fabric and thread. Okay, they don't have to look exactly like mine. Whether you're using clips or pins, make sure you have all those available. And then on top of using your all-purpose foot, which is your basic foot that comes with your sewing machine, you're also going to need a zipper foot. Yours might not look exactly like this, but most of them look something like this. They have some kind of like a T shape to them. Okay. And yeah, that's everything. So for this particular project, we are looking at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now, a lot of our project packs have 1/2 of an inch to give you a little extra room. We're going with a 3/8 of an inch on this one. So if you don't know where that is on your sewing machine, now's the time to check. You have this little metal piece right over here by your presser foot, and that's called your throat plate, and there's lines on it. Those lines are to help you as a guide for your seam allowance. One of those lines should be 3/8. On my sewing machine, it's the line right after the presser foot ends over here, and it's marked 10 millimeters, which is a centimeter, which is also 3/8. Your machine might be different because of the positioning of the needle. So if you don't know which line it is, grab yourself a ruler, put the ruler where the needle comes down, and measure out 3/8, find your line. Okay? Now, I'm going to actually rethrow my machine quick because as I'm looking at my fabric, I'm like, you know what? I think I want to do black thread. I don't want to do white. We do send you coordinating threads with your project pack, but you don't have to use them. If you have a different color that you have in mind, you can always grab that and use that instead. If you are requesting a certain color, you can also do that as well. We are happy to help with requests whenever we can. Oh, I need a black bobbin. I'm out of black bobbin. So everything is a learning experience. And when I teach sewing lessons, I always say this: if I forget to have something or my student makes a mistake, you know what? It's always a learning experience, which is great. So right now, I'm just going to spool my bobbin. Now, every machine is a little bit different on how you thread your bobbins. Your best bet is to check your manual as to how, or reference, if you guys are doing summer camp, reference the video on spooling bobbins in our video library that we give to our sewing camp students, because that actually has a walkthrough of how to do it on a couple different machines, which is helpful. My particular machine has a hack that lets me do it right from the needle, which is great. But I want to show you this because most sewing machines require you to put your thread in up through the little hole in your bobbin, rather than just wrap it around a couple times when you're spooling. And so something that I tell all of my students that seems pretty helpful. When you are putting the thread in through the hole, because my bobbin only has one hole, but a lot of bobbins have a hole on each side, right? You want to look at this like an ice cream sandwich. Okay, so think back to your childhood days of ice cream sandwiches. You have a cookie on this side, a cookie on that side, and then you have ice cream going in the middle. When you go to put your thread into spool bobbin, you want your thread to go into the ice cream. You don't want it going in through a cookie or in through a cookie. You go in through the ice cream and then up through the cookie. Let me show you what I mean. So find my hole. Okay, and I'm going to go in through the cookie, or sorry, in through the ice cream and up through the cookie. So my thread kind of goes up through here and then out through the top. Okay, and then I just push it onto my bobbin spool. There's like a little pin there. Last thing you want to do is click that pin over so that it transfers your motor from over here to over there. And then we just hit the pedal. And I usually wait for it to do a few times up before I trim away the thread, and then I just let it rip. And I'm going to grab my black thread because I just ran out of thread. Woo, lots of mistakes today. I'm going to start acting like the teacher from the Magic School Bus, Miss Frizzles. Get messy. Frizzle, not Frizzles. Get messy, make mistakes. I love mistakes, though, honestly. They have taught me so much of my sewing. And hopefully you don't have to make as many as I did, because I try to teach you guys not to and how to avoid different mistakes. Whenever you make one, don't worry. It's a learning experience. The people who make the most mistakes, honestly, they can get through the mistakes. You want to be the best sewer. Okay, let's start this project. I think you guys have waited far enough. It's been 10 minutes into our live. Okay, we're going to go to the first page. So we'll go to the first page. Number one, we're starting with our zipper. Okay, so you're going to lay your zipper down, right side facing up. I'll show you guys this a little in a second. Right side facing up. Take your two of your zipper ends. Those are these little squares. And sandwich the zipper between them. Make sure the zipper end pieces have the right sides of the fabric facing. So we want our right sides facing the zipper. And then there's a little note there when working with waterproof canvas, the side that you see the weave. So let's get better. You see the weave there? That's the right side. The side that looks plasticky, that's the wrong side. Okay. Now, let me get you guys a little closer here so you can see what we are doing. Light over here. Okay, and if you guys have questions as we go or I go too fast, just let me know in the comments. I sew pretty fast on this guy, and I like to do that during lives just because it reduces the amount of time that I'm keeping you guys here. But if you want me to slow anything down, just put it in the comments. You can always go back and watch this later. Okay, so I have two of these little pieces, right? Set my other two aside over here. All right. When I say sandwich them, what I mean is I take one. This is right side facing up, sitting here. Okay. Doesn't matter which way I turn it, because again, I gave you guys wider than we need. And then we flip it over like this. So the right side of my fabric is facing the right side of my zipper. And I'm, for the purposes of this, going to put a clip in it just to keep it in position. Okay. Now I have another one, and I can lay it down like this with the right sides facing up. I do this just so that I make sure I'm always connecting the right sides. I flip it over. Again, right sides are facing up. Or I'm sorry, right sides are facing each other. So now if I were to flip this back, I would see the really pretty right side of the fabric. And same thing on this side. That's what you guys want, okay? All right, so we got through our first step there. Next step is sew 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Flip back both zipper end pieces and top stitch 1/4 inch from fold. So let's show you what that looks like. Get you in here a little bit closer. You can see. Try to get this a little closer for you here. All right, so I'm lining up my fabric underneath my presser foot. There's a hole in your presser foot. You want your fabric to be a little bit past that hole. Okay. This edge of my fabric, I want to be lined up on the 3/8 line. Okay. I put my presser foot down and I start by locking my stitch. Now, you will be sewing over the zipper so slow. If you're nervous, you can always turn your hand wheel towards you, which means this direction, to sew slowly. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But we're going to start by locking our stitch. So forward, 1, 2, 3, backwards, 1, 2, 3. Now I start to the zipper. Now, I can do the foot control where I go really slowly. Like this is how slow you want to go. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, turn your hand wheel like such. Your hand wheel is this wheel on the side of your machine, and it basically manually sews. So once you're past this little plastic part of the zipper, you can keep going. And then at the end, you just backstitch. Okay. I'm going to cut my threads. You can take your needle out, lift up your zipper foot, and you can cut your threads on the side if you don't have a self cutter. And then what we're going to do, so this is what it should look like. Sorry, guys, I want to get good lighting in here. So this is what it should look like, okay? And what you're going to do is you're just going to flip it back, just like so, okay? Flip it back. We're going to kind of crease it a little bit. And then you're going to turn it so you have your zipper side up, Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a top stitch. It means we're just going to start here at the edge of our zipper, and we're going to sew to the other edge of our zipper 1/4 of an inch away from the back of the zipper. Okay. So 1/4 inch. I'm going to lock my stitch. I'm going to again take my time, going really slowly over the zipper, and then lock my stitch again at the end. Okay. Now at this point, you want to cut away all your extra threads. And although it doesn't say it in the instructions at this point, I don't remember if I have it later on down the road. Let's see if I did put it in there to trim. I did not. So at this point, you want to go ahead and trim your fabric. What that means is I want you to take your piece, okay, and got your fabric scissors, and just alongside of the zipper, you want to just cut it so that that's flat. You see the difference? So this one's flat, this one's bumped. If you don't want to get close, if you're worried about not cutting straight, just give yourself a little bit of room. But just getting rid of some of the extra is going to make it a lot easier for you. So now, before I do my next one, because I'm a perfectionist, I'm going to lay my zipper down like so onto my project. Okay, so the zipper I cut for this one was a little bit too long. Okay, but I want that extra space on either end. So the reason I'm doing this is so that I can make sure, I'm going to trim my zipper so that I can make sure I have. So that's what your zipper should look like. Line it up. It should look something like that. There should be a gap at the bottom. All right, now we're going to do the other one. So I'm going to lay it down right side facing up. Okay, so I can feel the zipper teeth. Lay my first one down, flip it over, lining up this edge, and put my clip in. And I'm going to flip it over. So this is the back of the zipper. Right side facing up. Flip it over onto it and clip. I'm going to go back to the front, find my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and sew across. And locking my stitch as I go, and really slow over the zipper teeth. So what sorts of things happen when you don't go slow over the zipper teeth? Well, sometimes nothing happens. You're really lucky. Other times your needle breaks, which is not so fun if it comes flying towards you. So now we're going to take that, we're going to flip it back. Okay, and we're going to do our top stitch. Sometimes your needle will bend. I've even seen them get caught inside the bobbin case, which is never a fun thing. So it's just a good practice to go slow. All right, I'm going to trim this guy as well. Done. Now my zipper should look something like this. What I want to do is find the center of this zipper, and I'm going to mark it with a clip so that it can be in the center of my piece when we connect those in the next step. Okay, so let's talk about this next step. Some of my garbage out of here. All right, we are now down here. Step number 3, assembling your pouch. All right, so you're going to lay down one of the pouch side pieces D. That's these ones. Right side up. Along the top edge, lay your zipper with the right side facing up. So that means you should see your zipper. Okay. Flip the zipper down onto the side piece. Pin and sew using a zipper foot. So this actually worked out beautiful. I don't even need to match up the centers. But if you have one that's longer, the reason we find the center is it helps you center your zipper. So I can go like this and find the center, just folding that in half to find the center of this piece. And then when I go to flip this down like that, and I'm flipping it down, I can match up those center spots. All right. And I can make sure that it's perfectly centered on my piece. So I'm going to, now that it's flipped down, I'm going to go along the edge and I'm just going to clip it in place or pin it in place depending on what you're using. All right, it should look something like this from one side and this like on the other, okay? We want to pin and sew it using the zipper foot. Now, when you use your zipper foot, you always want to use it on the side with the bump. So this is the back side. You can't really see. There's not like a lot of bump there. The bump is on this side. So what we want to be doing is sewing on this side. If you stick with your seam allowance, you will be absolutely fine with sewing within the area. I'm going to show you how to do that too. So first we need to switch out our presser foot. So I'm going to grab my my zipper foot. Now, sometimes a machine will have like a little lever here that you push to release your presser foot. For mine, it's the kind where you just pull, you pull out and it slides. I'll get that later. I have another foot I can use. And then you just push this one up in there, okay? There's a left side and a right side to every zipper foot. Okay, which side you use is determined by what side you're sewing on. So basically, I'm going to be using the left side of it because my fabric's going to go like this. And this edge is going to fall right on that, right next to that bump on the front of your zipper so that I can make sure that I'm staying the right distance from the zipper. Okay. If you want to know more about learning about doing zippers and you're part of our sewing summer camp, you have access to our lesson library. There is a video about how to do zippers. If you're shaky on that, I suggest going and doing that before you do it for the project. Okay, so we're sewing on this side again because we want that bump. We're sticking with our 3/8 of an inch, so I'm still putting my fabric edge right on that 3/8 of an inch line. And on most machines, that means your needle will go right where it needs to be, and the edge of this foot will also be right where it needs to be. Double check yourself though, guys. Don't take my word for it because every machine is different. So just make sure the edge of your presser foot is going to fall right here, and you can do that by going like a little bit forward here and putting it down and just seeing, okay, that sits right there. You can also, excuse me, gradually lower using your hand wheel, your needle to make sure that it's not hitting the presser foot, that it's falling where you want. All right, we start by locking our stitch. 1, 2, 3 forward, 3 back, and then we go all the way across. Take your time when you're sewing a zipper, and take your time as you go across. That's the biggest thing. I even take time with zippers because when I don't, they wind up funky. And what I do is I use my right hand here to kind of feel the fabric and make sure it's nice and flat. And I use my left hand to support. Now, at some point, you are going to reach a point where your zipper pull is. And that's right here for me. So I can feel the zipper pull. There's a big bump. Don't sew next to that. What you want to do, turn your hand wheel towards you, get your needle in your fabric. At this point, you can lift up your presser foot and you can turn your fabric any which way. You're not breaking your stitch. You can keep sewing after you put your presser foot back down. But before you put it down, you want to sneak underneath here, okay? And you're going to grab your zipper pull and you're just going to pull it backwards. So pull it out of the way. And then you're going to line it all back up and put your presser foot back down. Now, you might find that there's now a little bit of a bump here from that your pinning is a little off because that was in the way. If that's the case, take a minute and try to adjust it. If you can't adjust it while it's in your machine, don't worry about it. Lock your stitch, take it out, adjust it, and then go back. And when you start over, you'll lock your stitch at the beginning again. See what happens when you sew fast? It goes off. You guys see that little bit of black right there? So we're going to go a little slower. Being a lead foot, as my grandma called it. Locking stitch at the end. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Again, that's where I went a little too fast. My other side looks like this. Okay, the next step is to flip back the zipper and top stitch on the fabric. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this zipper. Get you some light here. And we take the zipper and we're going to flip it backwards so that we can see the right side again. And you can zipper it up at this point if that makes it easier for you to control. And you can use your thumbnail and just kind of slide it down the top. Waterproof canvas is great like that. It creases really well. But it should look something like so. Now, if you are having trouble holding this fabric together, you can go ahead and grab some pins and pin it, okay? We're going to be putting it into the machine this way because our presser foot is on this side and we want it to sit right on this side of the fabric. It's just easier than moving it back and forth. If you want to put it in this way, you got to take your presser foot out and move it to the other side. Whichever way you put it in, if you're going to pin, make sure the pins are facing the back of the machine. So that means if I pin like this, the point's going this way, that's heading towards the back of my machine, okay? However, I'm not going to pin only because waterproof canvas, like I said, stays really, really well for me. And I've handled it a lot, so I feel really comfortable just going ahead and sewing it. So locking your stitch at the beginning and the end. Also, notice I didn't change my foot. We're going to be using this foot again. If you feel more comfortable using your other foot at this point, you can. But I find when I'm top stitching your zipper, it's easier to use my zipper foot. It just gives me a little bit more the ability to go a little closer to the zipper if I need to without causing issues. Also, when I'm sewing this, guys, I'm not looking over here to seam allowance. I'm paying attention to where my foot falls in relation to the actual fold here. I like to keep the edge of my presser foot right on the fold to make it an even amount, but that's where you should be looking. Find a point that you want to line it up to, and then that'll help you sew straight. Okay. And now we look like that. It's coming together. All right, flipping on to page 4. All right, step 3, number 3. Now lay your one assembled side down, your one assembled side down with the right side facing up. Lay the other pouch piece D down with the right side facing up along the other side of the zipper. So there's my zipper, there's another piece. And I'm going to line up this piece and this piece. I'm not paying attention to the zipper in case it's a little long, which mine is. All right. Fold this, now number 3.4, fold the second piece down onto the zipper so the right sides are facing, like so. Pin and sew the zipper the same way you did the first side. So let me show you this again. You flip it down here, we line up this top edge. Okay, and again, I'm lining up these edges. I'm not worried about this one, about the zipper one. I'm just going to clip it all the way along. And if you found that your pinning was off before because of the zipper, feel free to move the zipper back and forth as you pin it this time so that it doesn't get in your way. And then you don't have to repin. Okay, I bring this guy back and I'm going to go ahead and sew that the same way, locking my stitch at both sides. I reached the zipper, put my needle in, press her foot up, slide that zipper out of the way, press her foot back down, line it all up, keep sewing. And lock my stitch. And then I'm going to flip it back and I'm going to top stitch. Make that nice crease. All right, and before I move on, I'm just going to neaten this guy up. I have a little bit of an overhang there. I want to neaten up and get out of the way. And I have some threads hanging out. Get rid of those. Make it nice and pretty. You don't see me cut away my threads a lot because my machine actually does it for me. But occasionally I have these little ones that I like to get rid of. One trick to making your sewing works look very professional is be very neat. So that means cut away your threads, try to sew straight, things like that. They make it look really nice. All right, number 4. We're on page 4. Right here, we are on number 4. So this can be a little bit tricky, but only on paper. Once you see it, it kind of becomes a lot easier. All right, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these corners and bringing them together. So you're going to bring one of the corner edges together with the right sides facing, pin and sew, and repeat with each corner. So let me show you how I do this, okay? So I have this like this. Literally at the point is where I'm folding it, so that this edge folds up to that edge. So there's my point, and I'm just folding those edges together. All right. Let me show you guys one more time. Laying it flat. I'm at this point, folding, and this edge is coming up to this edge. And then we clip it, and then we use our seam allowance. We're going to switch back to all-purpose foot, and we're going to sew it. And don't be afraid to sew right off the fabric. Okay, after you lock your stitch. So then it'll look something like this. And if I were to put that back out, I have a nice 3. And I do that with my stitch. Okay, here's my corner. There's my point. I'm folding this at that point up like that. I clip it in place, and then I sew it. Make sure that your stitch goes all the way to the end, both ends. Okay, 2 more corners. Ooh, we got one side of a box. If you don't clip, this is what happens. I'll just show you guys that. You see that? You see how it's a little off? So make sure that you're clipping it. It just keeps it nice and neat. If you make a mistake, it's not going to make a huge deal on the outside, but it's nice to just try to make it nice and neat. Okay, last time, corner, bring it up. All right, turn this right side out. And number 5 is to fold all the edges under, okay? So you have these rough edges here. And what we want to do is just kind of tuck them under. So if you turn this right side up, and it doesn't matter which way you put your little tabs here, but you're going to just fold it up like so. And you can put clips in, like I'm doing. You can put pins in just to keep it in place. But that's the difference. One side to be folded. You want that fold to be all the way around. The reason we're doing that is we are actually going to be sewing right here to attach this to our main piece. So this helps to have the fold in place. And eventually you don't even need the clips because like I said, this fabric will crease. So you don't have to worry about those. But it does help initially just to keep everything where we want it. Okay. All right, so I have that nice and folded now. Okay, number 6. Oh my gosh, we're almost done with this page already. We're down here. Number 6, lay your main piece, your main lining piece A. So let's find the main lining piece A. That's your other piece. It would be your long piece that is pretty like so. Yours is probably out of a waterproof canvas because that's usually what we send. Let me get some extra space over here for us to do this. All right, so we're going to set you aside. Lay down your main lining piece A, okay, with the right side facing up. So we want it to look just like this. And if you weren't sure, the pictures have different, you'll notice there's different colors for different sides. So the different pieces, so you can just see, okay? All right, lay down your main lining piece A, position your pouch on the left side, a half an inch from the short edges. So grab your ruler if you are not able to estimate. Okay, I like to put my zipper going upwards, but it doesn't really matter. This is your one side, and you want to go half an inch out from that, okay? From all sides. Now, mine's pretty creased, so I'm going to take away my clips. And I'm going to just kind of center this a half an inch from that edge and a half an inch from the bottom edge. Okay, it does not have to be perfect, guys. It just has to be. As long as it's not right up against that edge, you're good. Now, when I go to put my first pin in here, I'm actually going to use my pinchers, and I'm going to pinch the fabric just in that one spot and put one pin in first. Now, suddenly, I have a lot more control over this fabric. Now, I can go down a little bit farther. I can put another pin in. Notice the direction I'm putting my pins into. Okay? Get you guys really close here. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to put another pin in there. Now, I'm going to keep taking clips out. I'm going to just make sure I'm good there. Now I'm going to go to this edge. Okay, so I'm going to go to my bottom edge. So it says with folded bottom edge turned in. So I have that turned in. Pin each side down flat. Okay, you'll need to push the top of the pouch left and right to pin the bottom in place. So that means right here, I was pushing it this way. Now I'm over here. Now I'm over here. So I'm actually going to take this, find my corner there, which is my seam, and I'm going to push it this way. Yep. Just like that. I'm pushing the pouch that way. Now I'm going to go over to the other side here. Okay, we have this side. There's my seam. So I'm going to go on this side. I'm going to get my zipper out of the way, fold this under, and I'm going to push it flat. Tucking that under. I'm just pushing it nice and flat. And if you feel like you can't get the whole thing down without it moving, just get one side down. You can always move a pin if you need to. Just like that, okay? One more side. I'm going to box my box out again, like so. Tuck my bottom edge under, and I'm going to lay it flat. So for this side, I'm actually having trouble getting the whole entire thing, so I'm going to just start on this side. And I'm going to pin the one side, just like that. And then I'm going to keep going until I am all the way to my edge. Now, the end of this step says to sew along all edges. Do not feel like you have to sew this in one continuous loop. Chances are it's going to be a lot easier for you to sew this side, locking your stitch at both ends, then switch and push this other way, locking your stitch at both ends. That's the easiest way to do this. I'm going to show you how to do it continuously. So you can try to follow along with that if you'd like. Tip that up so you can see it a little bit better. I am going to start at the short end here, okay? And I'm just going to start where I feel it's flat. Probably not at the corner. That's probably not a good idea, but right where it's flat, I'll kind of get it in position. I want to keep my needle closer to the edge. How close you say, as close as you feel comfortable. For me, I like to use on this there's like this little inside edge. I like to keep the edge of the blue fabric on that so that it makes it an easy guide for me as I'm sewing, but you guys find your own groove. Okay. All right. So I'm pushing this to the side. I'm getting that lined up, and you want to make sure your needle doesn't hit your pin like mine just did. All right. We're going to start by locking your stitch. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 3 forward, 3 back. And then I'm going to sew, stopping to take out my needles. And I'm going to try to keep all this folded fabric away. So I am not, let me just show you quick here. This fabric is not neatly put over there. It's actually puffed out, okay? So that when I get to this corner, I'm not sewing over this fabric too. I'm just sewing that corner. And then I'll move it the other way. Okay. Here we go. All right, I've reached that corner. I'm putting my needle in, okay? Lifting my presser foot up. Now I'm moving it to this side, and I'm going to push all my fabrics this way. Put my presser foot back down, and I'm going to keep sewing. Again, when I get to this corner, I'm going to make sure everything is moving this way, away from my stitch, and not like tucked underneath there. Needle in, presser foot up, turn my corner, move everything out of the way, presser foot down. At that corner, needle in, presser foot up, moving that out of the way, and I keep sewing. Does it have to be perfect? No. Should you try your best? Yes. Presser foot up after my needle goes in automatically, so. And lock my stitch at the end. And there it is. You can see the stitch all the way around. And I like to open this up to puff it out really nice. Although it's going to get squished as we go here a little bit more. All right. So we've got one part done here on that. We got a little box guy attached. So I'm going to squish him down. And we're going to turn the page. Here we go. All right, so now we're going to set this guy aside. We're going to work on our other pockets that go on here, okay? So I'm just going to set him back here, hide all my stuff over there. And now what we want is we want our pocket piece B. So remember how I said you had two pieces that were the same? Pick whichever one you want to go on the bottom. And you can do that by looking at the pattern a little bit because this is going to be folded in half. So do I want it to look like that? Or do I want it to look like that? Decisions. I think I'm going to go with this one. All right. So the instructions right up here. We're on number 7, page 5. Say, take your bottom piece B. Got it. Fold over long ways with the right sides together. So the right side of the fabric is that pretty side. So I'm going to lay it down. This is my long way. This is my short way. So I'm going to fold it down the long way, just like the photograph. Or like the illustration with my right sides together. So you should be looking at the ugly side of the fabric. Okay. Stitch along the left short side, then invert and press. So left, make your left. This is the left. This is the short side. Break those instructions down smaller if they're confusing to you. Runaway pins. Okay. We're going to clip that. So I have that, and we're going to just sew it quick. 3/8 inch seam allowance, lock your stitch at the beginning and the end. Then the last part, so stitch along the left short side, then invert, which means turn it right side out. And press flat. I do not have an iron here, so I will be using my fingernail to crease it. But if you have an iron, feel free to iron this fabric because this fabric is cotton. You can iron it. You cannot iron any vinyls or waterproof canvases. That will not end well. Okay, so we have that all done. Place your main lining piece lined up to the rough edges at the bottom right side. Now, this is absolutely fine the way it is because we're going to do a bunch of top stitching. I have a personal preference when I make bags for myself, and that's I like a little bit of top stitching. So I'm going to put a little top stitch right across the top here, just a little under 3/8 of an inch. I am also doing this because I don't have an iron to press it. There, that makes me feel a little bit better. Okay, so now number 8, place your lining piece A. Oh, place on your lining main. Oh my God, I can't talk, guys. Place on your main lining piece A. So here's my lining piece A. Okay, let's get you over here so you can see. Get some light so you can see. Move the direction so you can see. Okay, so now we're dealing with this side. Lining up the rough edges on the bottom and the right sides. So these are my rough edges because they're not sewn. Okay. And I'm lining them up on the right and the bottom sides. See how I do that? And then we're just going to clip. I'm lining them right up to the edge. Okay. Because those are going to get sewn into our seams. Pin in place, then top stitch the left side in place 1/4 inch from the edge. Okay, so this piece is getting attached. So we want that to be top stitched in place here. So I'm actually going to go like this. I'm going to put some pins in. If you're wondering about the direction of my pins, you'll see in a second why I did that. Okay, we're going to do that top stitch. I get it in, I get my 1/4 inch, press her foot down, lock my stitch. See how I did that? Because there's not as much room over here. There's a lot more fabric here. I don't want that all bunched up in here. Lock your stitch. Now you want a little bit more durability on any of your openings where things go in. You can put a zigzag stitch on your machine and just zigzag like that much from the top. Just back and forth. Just gives you a little bit more durability. And lock your stitch and take it out. Ooh, I keep dropping clips. So you can see that little zigzag stitch just gives a little bit more durability. Do you have to do that? Absolutely not. All right, number 9, I'm sorry. Now baste 1/4 inch from the edge along the rough edges. Again, a basting stitch is a stitch that does not stay in your piece, or at least not where you can see it. We're going to stitch very close to the edge, and we don't even need to worry about locking our stitch with this one because it's just there to keep your fabrics connected so that when we attach other things, we don't have to worry about making sure everything's lined up. It's already connected with a stitch. It won't be seen in the product because it'll be inside our seam allowance. When I get to the corner, I put my needle in, I lift my presser foot up, and I turn the corner, and then I keep sewing. And now it should look something like this. It's really coming along now. Okay. Use a ruler, pencil marker to notate where you want your pockets. And that gives you some information about where to put it. What I want you to remember is that you have a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So whatever pockets you're making going this way, you need to measure 3/8 from the edge first. For this particular one, I'm going to do, I think, like a bigger pocket and then maybe some smaller pockets. I don't know. like to do, I have a little ruler right here. So I have a notebook that I think 6 inches would be enough for. So I'm going to bump it up to 6.5. Because if I fold this over, that's right about the right distance. So I'm just putting pins in to mark where I'm going to make that line roughly. And then I'm going to go like 1.5 inches, every 1.5 inches after that. Because then I can use this, or my kids will probably steal it and use it because that's what I'm thinking it's for, because that's why I use pink. For paintbrushes or pens or markers, I have a little bit more flexibility and have enough space for it. 1.5 inches is usually a good width for any of those tools. You can go a little bit smaller if you're dealing with just like colored pencils, but be careful about going too small. Okay, so 3/8 of an inch is here. That is 1.5, 2. All right, so we'll have a smaller one here at the end. And then we're just going to top stitch all the way down. Okay, and you can do those little zigzags at the top if that's something that you want to do. I'm going to put them in first and then top stitch over them. I zigzag, I switch to the straight stitch, and then I go all the way down. Now, I am really good at eyeing this, guys, because I do this all the time. Remember to lock your stitch. But I don't feel like you have to eye it. Seriously, like, don't feel like you have to eye it. Grab a pencil. The graphite will wash out in the wash. And just totally draw your lines. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong at all. So I've got about 3 more lines here to do quick. If you guys have questions, now would be the time to put it into the question, to the comment box. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And 2 more to go. And feel free to share pictures of you guys sewing your completed projects. You can tag us at Sewing by Amber. You can email them to us, sewingbyamber@gmail.com. There's all my lines in. Something like that. It's really coming together. We are almost there. All right, we're going to set this aside again and move on to number 11. Lay your cover piece C down. So this is the other piece that we were talking about. Right side facing up. Fold. Oh, let me tip you down so you can see. Okay. Move those out of the way. Let's see. Fold down along the long edge. So we're folding it down basically the same exact way. This time, though, just so you know, this is the way it's going to be in the end, okay? So we're folding it down right sides facing. This is going to be a flap to cover your materials so they don't fall out, okay? Pin and sew along the 2 short sides. So you're actually doing both sides in this case. You're not just doing one. So you're going to clip there and pin, and you're going to clip here and pin. Again, the 3/8 inch seam allowance is what you're after. And then you're going to invert it. Means just turning it right side out. And press, which again, I don't have my iron over here. So instead, I am going to do a top stitch. And you guys can turn to page 6. So I'm going to do a top stitch really quick, going down on the 3 folded sides, just so that it stays in place for the rest of this tutorial. All right, you should be on this page. Okay, we are almost at the end, guys and girls. Can you tell I have daughters? We say girls. Okay. We want it this way because we want to see everything in the right way. All right. Lay this cover piece down along the top right of your project main lining piece, lining up the rough edges. Be sure to line the left side of this flap with the left side of the pocket. This will leave a small gap for your seam allowance on the right. That is extremely important, guys. Ooh, I have some threads that got away from me. You want to leave a gap, otherwise you will not be able to lift this guy up. Okay? So double check yourself. You lay it down, rough sides, matching rough sides, and then I match this to the side pocket here, and I have that gap for my seam allowance. Again, that gap is really important because that way I can lift this up and down. All right. Baste along the top 1/4 inch from the edge. So we are basting again. And if you're wondering what I do when I tap my screen, I'm changing my stitches. My machine's a little bit more automated than most. Again, we don't have to lock our stitch when we baste. The other cool thing about these basting stitches, they will help reduce the fray on the inside of your piece from the fabric. That's also a really great use of them. All right. We are almost there. Now we need our strap. Okay. Take your strap. I'm going to lift this up just like the picture looks like. Okay. I'm going to slide it over so you guys can see it better. Right. Take your strap. Find the middle of the right short side. Right short side. Find the middle. So I'm going to fold this in half. Okay. My middle is right here. Place one end of the strap at the mark with a majority of the strap lying towards the center of the main lining piece. So that means all the strap that's going to be on the outside of the piece, you want on the inside right now, and you just want that edge right there. And then we're going to clip it. Feel free to make it go over the edge a little bit. That's absolutely fine. And then we're going to baste it into place. Okay, just a quick stitch. Make sure it stays perpendicular to the side. All right, here we go. Last big assembly. We're almost there, guys. All right, now you want to take your main outside piece. So that's this piece, okay? And we want to lay it down right side facing up. Line up the edges all the way around and lay over the top of your right side. Okay, so I had to do this opposite. So I'm going to put everything back down here. I'm actually going to take this little strap. I'm going to tuck it into one of my pockets so it doesn't get in the way. Okay, I'm going to lay this flat. Okay, we're going to smush this down as best we can towards the middle. All right, and we're going to take our main piece. I want this to be up this side, so I'm going to be really careful to do that. And lay it down over the right side, the top with the right sides facing. So that means don't lay it down like this. You want your right sides facing. And if it helps, you can lay them next to each other and then flip it over. Okay. Now here's probably a little bit of a tricky part. So just follow along and listen to what I have to say. You're going to pin all the way around this project, except for a small gap, which you can leave, I would recommend on this end, to turn it right side out. All right. When you pin it, this is not going to lay flat because look, you got these bumps, you got a lot of stuff in here. You need to trust your cutting, which we did for you, so trust it, and just match up the edges. So what I do is I go over here, I start with one corner, and I match up the edges of the corner, and I just go all the way down, matching up that edge, okay? Matching up the edge all the way down to your other corner, all right? Then go back up here, I'm looking at this corner, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just take my pieces using my pinchers, and I'm going to match them up, and I think all of my clips fell on the floor, so I'm going to start using pins, all right? And I'm going to put a clip in for this. I go all the way till I get my next corner. Now, this is not laying flat, remember. I'm lifting it up so I have that little bubble on the inside, and I'm matching up the edges. If you're not sure if these two pieces match too, what you can do is take this piece and set it underneath this one and match up the edges and trim where you need to trim. And then go back and do what I'm showing you here. If you lay it on top of this side, it's not going to lay flat. You're never going to be able to match it up completely. It's going to seem like it always has that bubble. Okay, so I'm over onto this side where this guy's underneath. All right, and again, I am just taking it a little at a time, and I'm matching up that edge. I'm pushing the bag out of the way. I don't want that in the way. I'm just working the edges all the way across. And again, I want to leave that gap. I don't want to leave the gap in the corner. That's kind of difficult to do that. So instead, I'm going to start a little bit before the corner, and that way the gap's in the middle. Okay? All right, you guys ready for this? Second to last sew up. Now you have a lot of fabric on this side, so I would suggest, whatever possible, put it on something elevated. If you have, if you're having trouble with it weighing down what you're doing, you can always put a stack of books under it. All right, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Start by locking your stitch, and we go to the corner. We stop about a seam allowance away. We put our needle in. We lift up our press. We turn the corner. Okay. Again, we're going to keep this there, and you can even use your left-handed feel to make sure you don't have anything you don't want in that spot. Again, this is heavy, so you're going to need both hands to make sure that the fabric doesn't get away from you. All right, we stop, again, a seam allowance away from the edge. Needle in, press your foot up, turn the corner. We go down this corner. And this is where my flap is. You'll be able to feel your flap. Just make sure your needle is not reaching that flap. That's all I got to make sure of. Now, when you get to your strap, you can go back and forward a couple times just to make it nice and secure there. We're going to be top stitching it as well, but that'll give you some added security. All right, seam allowance away, needle in, press your foot up. You could also roll that extra weight here to give yourself a little bit more flexibility there, so you don't have all that weight stopping you from sewing straight. Now I'm back over here with the bag. So we want to make sure we're keeping our fabrics together. And you see how my fabric kind of pulls that stitch that way? That's what heavy fabric will do. So use your hands and maybe a stack of books to go ahead and keep that weight controlled. Needle in, press your foot up, turn the corner, and then we're leaving that gap, okay? Now, before we do anything else, I want you to take a look over your assembled piece, look at both sides, make sure that you are inside any of your basting stitches, make sure that you didn't leave off here and go too close to the end. If you do have a spot like here, which I did intentionally so I could show you guys this, you see how my stitch kind of curves away. This is how you would correct it because this is getting turned right side out in a minute. You're going to start your stitch over here and lock it. Sew the correct distance until you meet back up with the correct distance stitch over here and lock it again. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start here where I have the right distance. I'm going to lock my stitch. And then I'm going to carefully make sure I keep my seam allowance the whole way through until here I am, it's matching back up. I lock my stitch and I'm good. Now when I turn that right side out, it'll look proper. Okay, before we turn this guy right side out, the last thing I want you guys to do is to clip your corners. And if we flip the page to page 7, that is actually the next step, to clip the corners. The light throws us off this one. So we want to cut close to our stitch, but not going into our stitch. We want to get rid of all the excess by the corner so our corners are nice and pointy, but we don't want to cut the stitch we've made. Okay? Then you can go to your opening here. When we turn it right side out, the easiest way is to put your hand in and go all the way to the opposite end. Just take your time. Try not to pull any stitches in the opening. Get the farthest corner, or you can even grab your strap. And you want to start by pushing that corner through, because then it's just a matter of taking your fabric and kind of just pushing it out. So no fuss. You're not putting a lot of stress onto your fabric when you turn it. Okay. It should start being right side out. And you can take a chopstick, or if you can fit your hand in there and just go through to your corners and really give them a good poke. I would avoid using something like a pencil or a pen because it could cut through your fabric. Scissors, same kind of thing, especially if they're pointy, but you're basically just pointing out those points to make them nice and pretty. This is again why we cut away the extra fabric. We have nice points. Many bags need to be shaped as you complete them, before you complete them. So you kind of just have to work the seams and make them sit where you want it to be. It's not going to automatically do it. Just shape it. Okay, so now it should look something like this. Okay. What we have to do last is we have to do a top stitch. Okay. So along the opening, this is step number 19, along the opening you use to invert, fold the edges inside your project and pin them closed. So what that means is this little opening right here, and it should naturally do it, but you want to take your fabric and you want to just fold it in, try to line it up with the seams after that, and then just kind of match it up so that it's the same there. And you're going to put a couple pins in it just to keep it closed. Okay. Then we're going to top stitch along the entire project, making sure that when we reach the flap, flip it up and out. the path of your stitch, and you can see the diagram to show you what that means. I'm going to go through quick before I do the top stitch though, and I'm just going to trim away some random threads that leaked out through the seam. Makes it a little easier. You might also, if you are a perfectionist, you might want to go through and just, what was I going to say? Oh, like pin it along that edge if you're finding that it's not really staying where you want it to stay. And that way it's a little easier for you to top stitch it without anything moving. Either way, come on. Either way, when you get to this part, you definitely want this flap up because we're going to stitch right underneath it so that you can still open and close it. Okay? All right, let's start our top stitch. Last stitch, guys, we're almost there. We're doing great. I'm stitching pretty close to the edge. I would say around 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, whichever you're more comfortable with. The closer you get at that opening, the better it will look, though, so that at least that part is really closed. Okay, and there you have it. Back up here so you guys can see. We have our roll up. Okay, we have spots for all of our little pens and pencils and notebook if you want it. And then when you're done, when you're ready to go, you just roll it up like so, wrap this around, and tie it underneath. And you're golden. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. Check out more projects at sewingbyamber.com, and don't forget to share your successes. And even if you get stuck, we want to see it all. We love to see our sewing students in action. Bye until next time.